Has anyone seen Steve? He told me to meet him here by these ropey containers. And
yes, Rich, we're talking wheelies today because I think the manoeuvre isn't quite as vigorous on an e-bike as it is on a mountain bike.
Steve, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a few other sort of nuances that are slightly different as well, aren't they? So we should teach them.
Yeah, and on today's video, we're going to teach you the whys, not just the whats. So on today's video, we're going to take you through 8 key points which will enable you to master the art of wheeling.
Point 1, choose level ground. Oh, God.
And also, think about the surface involved. For example, tarmac is going to provide a far faster wheelie than you'll experience on gravel or also on grass. So, maybe a bit more friction, a bit more control. Number 2, think about your speed. Now, you can wheelie at different speeds, but
a lesser speed is actually going to be beneficial to you because it means you've got more time to make micro adjustments. And let's face it, should you fall off, you're going slower, so it's going to be a bit safer.
Point 3, Rich, now gearing is absolutely essential to the wheelie move. Now, the manoeuvre requires you to move that crank relatively quickly in the push-pull manoeuvre at the start of the stroke, right?
100%, yeah, bang on, Steve.
So too hard, and you're not going to be able to do that. Too easy,
and you're basically going to almost loop out. You'll get that initial motion, you'll pick up the front wheel really easily, but then you're not going to be able to keep tension, essentially, on the system and keep that wheelie going.
It just so happens I've put Rich's bike in a hard gear. Take it away. Can he do it?
So this is in a very hard gear. Oh, God, the effort required is quite immense. So on the flip side, I put Steve's bike in about first or second gear. So look at this.
I'm guessing now I'll be able to wheelie quite easily, but I simply can't sustain that cadence.
It's an instant pickup, right? But then once you're up, it's like, oh my God.
So what we're saying, you probably need a gear in between a high gear and a low gear.
Yeah.
Middle of the cassette.
That's it, but this can be trial and error. So just practicing, you'll sort of figure out which one you need.
Now, mode is linked to speed and acceleration. On Shimano, I'm using trail mode, whereas Rich, what's that, Tour
mode, yeah, sort of middle of the range. I always find if it's too lower mode, it's not almost got the power, the kick to help you.
I find it really hard in eco.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you go the most power, turbo mode,
it's too much.
It's actually quite hard to control. Your brake control needs to be combined really well with that, which is something we'll get to as well.
Rich, I think seat height is a little bit of a halfway house.
Point number 4.
Like mode, because I think if the seat is too high, you're simply too stretched on the bike. At the same time, if it's too low, then you're kind of a little bit like this, aren't you?
I agree, yeah. So actually, our bikes here have the saddles exactly as we run them when we're popping wheelies and things like that. You see, Steve's is a lot lower than how I run mine. Now, this can change bike to bike depending on seat tube angle, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But also, you want your saddle at a point where if it is too low, like you said, you're scrunched up. You need to be able to get your weight up and behind the rear wheel or rear axle.
But you don't want it too rearwards, because in that, I mean, it's all about a balancing point, isn't it?
Yeah, true, because then you become really top heavy and it makes your life even harder.
Yeah.
There's a fine line, and there's a line that will work for you out there, and much like gearing, it's one you're going to have to play around with.
And I think, just to add to that as well, remember that your position of your seat, forwards and back in the rails, is important as well, 100%. As that affects how much weight you've got over the back or over the front of the bike. Now, rear brake, I would say, is the control centre of the wheelie, as demonstrated by Rich. No. So, Rich, I'd say that's probably the most important part of the wheelie, is the rear brake, because that prevents you from going out the back, right?
It is, yeah, all messing around our side. The back brake and covering it is absolutely crucial to wheeling on any kind of bike. And it's brake control that's really crucial. So it's feathering it. So you're essentially finding a balance point between drive, so the power that you're pushing through, and covering the brake. Now, what I actually tend to do, my sort of trick of the trade, is I essentially drag the brake the whole time.
100%.
So that it's always on. So actually you're using the motor and you're pedaling, pushing against that dragging brake.
And like, I think, like we talked about earlier, I think the whole wheelie and e-bike is maintaining tension in the system, right?
That's
which is both the mode, the crank, the brake, and your balance point. It's like, they all
work
matters.
in unison.
Yeah.
Crank position. Now this is crucial as to actually how you get started on your wheelie, and it's going to make life a lot easier having them in the right position. So for this, I'm going to need a beautiful assistant who unfortunately was busy today. So Steve will have to do. Now hop aboard, Steve. Crank position wants to be around with your lead foot, so your dominant foot, at about 2 o'clock, Steve. So come around to about there.
Yeah. So in theory, Rich, I reckon you should be able to take it off from here, right?
That's it. So you're going to do one big pedal stroke with that, and then as long as you follow through with the following pedal stroke, real powerful as well, you can wheelie from a standstill.
It's all about the follow through, isn't it, Rich?
100%, you know it.
Here we go. Whoa, across me.
There we go.
Okay, finally is the manoeuvre itself. Now, Rich has actually summarised it really, really well. It's all about crouch, touch, pause, engage. I think that is absolute genius. So what I actually do is, before I'm doing a wheelie, I'll crouch down my body position into the centre of the bike. I'll touch both the back brake and the crank, and I'll pause, and then the engagement part is pushing down and pull lift.
Yeah, squish and pop, I call it as well. Yeah. So you squish, you pop, but that is, you know, we're both rugby fans. I think that's a really good way of sort of summarising that whole motion.
That's it, folks. On this bitterly cold, biting day in the southwest of England, I think ultimately all those points, only you guys can recognise how to put them all together to build tension in the system, to keep that balance point or keep you moving along. I think it's all about practice, but learn to understand the mode, the gear, the speed, the surface, the body position, the seat height, all these things, they all matter. And I think one thing, like you mentioned earlier, that brake, learn to use the brake,
100%,
right?
yeah, brake control is crucial. But yeah, you'll piece it together, practice makes perfect, and well, let us know how you get on.
Send us your wheelies in.